Hello and welcome to Security Weekly News for the week of 25 February, show number 364. So this week in the Security Weekly News, Avast finds, HackerGPT innovations, DDoS threats, encryption, updates, Josh Marpet, and more.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News.
Created in 2005 and hosted by security industry veterans, Call Security Weekly is your source for in-depth coverage of the latest vulnerabilities, exploits, and security research. Our weekly security news discussion dives deep into the security issues we face today and potential solutions in a fun and lively atmosphere. Each week we bring on guests from the security community to learn about their journey and discuss topics relevant to their work and research. You can also subscribe to our show by visiting securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Call Security Weekly in your favorite podcast catcher. We've recorded a ton of content over the years, so we created Spotify playlists featuring some of our favorite episodes, including interviews with Marcus Random, John McAfee, and Chris Roberts, to name a few. You can find them at securityweekly.com/starter packs.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Aaron Leyland, standing in for Dr. Doug while he talks about important stuff at a company. First story, Avast fined millions for selling browsing data. Avast, an antivirus software company, actually said that in the article. I thought they'd all been rebranded to malware or something. Was fined $16.5 million by the FTC for selling user browsing data despite claiming to protect privacy. Key points on this: Avast collected user browsing data through various products and sold it to third parties via Jump Shop, who was acquired in 2013, apparently. The data reportedly included sensitive information like religious beliefs, health concerns, and financial details. Pretty bad, to be honest. They should know better. Avast claimed to anonymize the data, but the FTC found it could be re-identified. So totally underlines the FTC's focus on combating deceptive data practices, potentially impacting other companies. And honestly, from me, it is good to see some teeth in an organization. It demonstrates the financial and reputational risks associated with deceptive data practices, although really mostly feels like not much. It just feels like it wasn't very much money and they don't really care about their reputation, or at least a lot of people don't anyway. Remember, this came straight into my head when it said fine $16.5 million. Fines are just permission for rich people to do whatever they want at a cost. Anyway, next story. Okay. New DDoS malware attacking Apache, Big Data Stack, Hadoop, and Druid servers. A new variant of the Lucifer DDoS botnet malware targets Apache, Hadoop, and Druid servers, exploiting vulnerabilities and misconfigurations for cryptojacking and DDoS attacks. Key points in this: targets Apache system exploit vulnerabilities, including CVE 2021-25646 and misconfigurations in Apache, Hadoop, and Druid. There's hybrid capabilities combining cryptojacking, which they highlighted Monero mining, and DDoS attacks for financial gain and resource disruption. They say there's been evolving tactics, shifts between exploiting Hadoop misconfigurations and the CVE 2021-25646 vulnerability in Druid. So get patching. Next story. HackerGPT, I love talking about this, a ChatGPT-powered AI tool for ethical hackers and cybersecurity community. What is it? Well, apparently, they tell us it is an AI assistant designed for ethical hackers utilizing ChatGPT technology and trained, this is the important bit, on specialized cybersecurity data. They probably, I don't know. I don't want to surmise, but I'd have just dropped all the Metasploit in there. Anyway, key features: assists with various tasks like network mobile hacking and understanding attack vectors, offers access to both GPT-3 and 4 models for, they say, diverse hacking methodologies. And it's available as a web app with a free trial and premium options. They say some benefits. This is funny. Streamlines hacking processes like payload generation, attack vector analysis, and enhances security evaluations and stakeholder communication. Provides access to vast database of hacking knowledge and tools. I wonder where that came from. So they have some additional notes on this. They reckon version 2.0 beta is now available as open source on GitHub. User queries are processed following ethical guidelines with secure data transmission. I don't know. Sounds a bit dodgy to me. And there's a separate section exists for technical issues and general discussions within the community. At very least, it looks like a whole lot of research. I'm doing air quotes here for anybody that doesn't watch this live. Type fun. I'm going to spend some hours, days, weeks, maybe. I'm going to look into this if it's any good for research. Although I did lose 80 hours not that long ago to Hogwarts. I can probably do with staying away with this. Next story. Cybersecurity crisis in schools. The education sector faces significant cyber threats due to factors like BYOD, bring your own device, complex infrastructure, and resource constraints. TrustWave research highlights attackers' tactics, vulnerable systems, and emerging threats. So the key points on this, they're saying there's multiple vulnerabilities, BYOD, also unmanaged devices, outdated systems, and exposed public systems, all creating a large attack surface. They highlight the data at risk here, student data, some PII, even research, stay away China, and the intellectual property are prime targets for attackers. There's even job offer scams, phishing attacks targeting students with fraudulent job offers. And then everybody's favorite at the minute, third-party risk, vulnerabilities in vendor services, which obviously can impact multiple institutions on the reach there, and caught in a time trap. Ransomware rise, and they're on about ransomware attacks. They're just everywhere. Every day I turn on my computer, I hear about a ransomware attack against education or medicine. And there's even, it's crazy that they're actually having to specify this still. Log4j vulnerability remains the most common exploit attempt against educational institutions. Okay, some recommendations, because you know I'm all about a recommendation. Implement strong device security, address BYOD challenges, and secure all devices accessing a network. I wish I could meet the person that thought BYOD at scale would be a really good idea. Invest in robust cybersecurity measures, prioritize cybersecurity despite budget limitations. That's just ridiculous, isn't it? But yeah, do as much scam with the least that you've got. And just patch. You know, when we look back at things like this, Log4j, and even all the Eternal Blue type stuff, no, it's still going around. There's still an attack vector. And they still teach it in cyber training because it's actually still out there and they can still prove that point. We should always monitor third-party vendors. That's like a really important factor these days. And most importantly, educate users, raise awareness, talk about phishing, talk about scams, educate the students, educate the staff, get them involved. So, in conclusion, the education sector needs a proactive approach to cybersecurity, protect data, ensuring a safe learning environment, and mitigate the growing cyber risks. For me, it really is because of the financial aspect of this. It's time for the governments to stand up and protect education and health, in my humble opinion. Next story. Apple announces post-quantum. I was just talking about this with George before the show. Post-quantum encryption algorithms for iMessage. So Bruce Schneider is talking about this. Don't you just love a bit of Schneider? Here's what he had to say. Apple introduces PQ3, a post-quantum encryption standard based on the Kyber protocol. And it raised debate on the decision as they reckon an early adoption of post-quantum algorithms may be premature due to evolving cryptography. And that is so scary. However, they say Kyber is a good choice. Its efficiency and security are strong arguments for its use. There's a focus on agility here. Apple's ability to adapt to future advancements is crucial. That's okay for them, but what about the rest of us? So this is something, timely defense, protecting against attackers, storing encrypted messages for future decryption is essential. I talk about this all the time. I was actually just talking to you about it with Josh. Do not think that nation states are not hosing up all the information. And when they have quantum technology, they're not just going to retro look at all that. Of course they are. They're hoovering it all up. Next story. CrowdStrike 2024 Global Threat Report, 6 key takeaways. So summary of this is CrowdStrike's report highlights an evolving cyber threat landscape with increased attacks on cloud environments, exploitation of trusted relationships, and faster network compromise times. So key points on this: social engineering and identity attacks remain prevalent. Phishing, credential theft, and Kerberos roasting are common tactics, most of them still. Cloud intrusions surged by 75%. Financial motives drive most of the attacks, no shock there, targeting both cloudware and agnostic environments. Third-party vulnerabilities exploited, compromising trusted partners, grants attackers access to numerous targets. CrowdStrike have said new actors emerge. They have identified 34 of them. Who knows all their names? I bet you someone out there does. Faster network compromise. Attackers move laterally within networks quicker, averaging 62 minutes for initial breakout, which is kind of interesting information there. And they say that periphery and EOL products are targeted, especially unmonitored devices, and outdated systems are attractive. Attack vectors, which doesn't shock us, and IoT rules the world. There you go. Next story. EFF statement on Nevada's attack on end-to-end encryption. So the summary of this is Nevada seeks to block end-to-end encryption for minors. That's not the people that dig in the ground. That's young people on Facebook Messenger, raising concerns about user privacy and setting a dangerous precedent. The key points we pulled out of this is Nevada Attorney General seeks a temporary restraining order against Meta. Orders targets end-to-end encryption for Facebook users under 18. The EFF. Don't you used to love the EFF? I love the EFF. I actually have a great hoodie of the EFF that I got at DEF CON a few years back. Prized possession. So they argue against the measure, citing its counterproductive nature and potential legal issues. And they talk about potentially sets a precedent for broader encryption restrictions. Well, it has to start somewhere, right? So EFF, working on behalf of good people, plans to contest the order and defend users' privacy rights. So some implications here. It highlights the ongoing tension between user privacy and attempts to regulate online content, particularly for minors, which always in the face of it seems like a good idea. But when you look at the second and third order effects, it's not always a great idea, is it? The outcome could have significant consequences for the future of end-to-end encryption and user privacy online. And us, the cybersecurity professionals, should be aware of the potential impact in the field. Imagine having to do away with end-to-end encryption. Nothing would work with it. But honestly, that is one to watch. I'm sure every month you read the news, that's getting attacked from all angles, including in Europe and the UK. Next story, Ubuntu 6654-1 Roundcube webmail vulnerability. So there's a security issue here. We're looking at Ubuntu 23.10, 22.04, 20.04, 18.04, 16.04. You get the idea. But anyway, summary, Roundcube webmail could allow cross-site scripting attacks. Apparently, it was discovered that the Roundcube webmail incorrectly sanitized characters in the links ref text messages. WASP would be so sad. You think we'd be past that? You think we'd be good at sanitizing characters now? But an attacker could possibly use this issue to execute a cross-site scripting attack, and there's a CVE 2023-43770. Okay, now I've rattled through all that. We can slow down for a second, and it's time to move over to the professional commentary from my good friend Josh Marpet, who's ensured to enlighten us. Josh, show me your cyber.
We'll talk some professionalism, I suppose, but no worries. I think you did a great job. But I'd like to point out that a lot of the stories you talked about today were about encryption and trust, and between quantum encryption from Apple and Nevada end-to-end encryption case, and various other things about encryption in your talks, in your articles. It's fascinating that we're going to talk about it again in this article about Huawei and Kazakhstan and China. And so the article that I've put in for today is, well, frankly, it's fascinating. So a while back, Huawei, which is a Chinese company, set up the Kazakhstan's 5G network, okay? And then recently, I don't know if you heard about this, but China had some intelligence documents dropped into GitHub and various places as a leak. So they had their equivalent of WikiLeaks, let's put it that way. And some of those documents, it took a while to translate them, of course, because they're all in Chinese. And I don't know about you, but I don't read Mandarin or Cantonese. No, I know. I'm an illiterate peasant. But some of those documents are all of the call directory records for every Kazakhstan phone call. Okay, what does that mean? That means that China, their intelligence service, were reading Kazakhstan's, were getting at least the metadata of all of Kazakhstan's phone calls. So they know who was talking to whom, when, how long they talked, etc. Doesn't mean they listened to the phone calls. We're not certain of that. But to have that knowledge, to have that metadata is, well, terrifying. I mean, you had a story earlier about how just through some metadata, there was a massive amount of re-identification possible from, I think it was Avast. They had to pay $16 million. And that was, not horribly understood. That was pretty understandable. Like, oh, you can never re-individuate this. Well, we're getting better and better at re-individuating. If I have somebody's phone number, however, which I do from the call directory records, I'm sorry, it's pretty darn easy to individuate. Okay? So the intelligence services of China were getting all of the call directory records for all of Kazakhstan's phone calls. Now, does that mean that Huawei was feeding it to them? I don't know. Not gonna lie, I have no idea. But I have a suspicion. I have an opinion. Okay? Now, what is this? Let's set this in some historical context. Is this unusual? No, not at all. I don't know if you know this, but I think it was 15 years ago or so, Congress actually had to ban people from getting their phones pinged. This is not your standard ICMP ping. It's similar. But what it means is your phone would be pinged. You wouldn't get a phone call or anything. Your phone would just simply ping, and it would bounce back through a cell phone tower and give the GPS coordinates of where it actually was. Now, it's not the police, by the way. Private citizen could call up a company, normally a private investigation company, and go, hey, I need to find out where this phone is. Sure. Ping. And here's the GPS coordinates of the phone right now. Okay. Well, wait a minute. Don't you need a warrant for that? Nope. There were commercial services that up until 10 years, 15 years ago, something like that, you could do it. Matter of fact, 20 years ago, maybe 15, don't remember the timeline, they banned US companies from doing it. So you had to call a Canadian company to do it for you because they're linked into the same cell phone. So they would do the ping for you, and that's fine because it's a Canadian company. Congress, a few years later, finally said, no, just stop. Okay? So these days, it's really tough. You have to actually set up your own SS7 server. You shouldn't do that. You really shouldn't do that. That would be rude. Horribly rude. I remember talking about SS7 with Kristen Paget. God, I can't even remember how many years ago. And how even without an IMSI catcher, which Kristen is famous for developing, you could literally just find a phone. You can do, with an SS7 server, you can find all the same exact kind of metadata. This kind of metadata tells you who's cheating on who. This kind of metadata tells you where somebody is and what they're doing, whether they're talking to another intelligence service, whether they're talking to another potential employer. industrial espionage. I mean, this is a massive amount of information. And so when China is getting all of this from Kazakhstan, my question is, what other countries are they getting this from? And if you look at a map of where Huawei, assuming that Huawei is the reason, the way, the methodology that this happened, if you look at a map of where Huawei has provided the 5G services, the backbone, the backhaul, and everything else for countries, it's a pretty damn significant fraction of the world. So I've got to ask, how much of this does China get? That's a little worrisome, I'm not going to lie. So we're really talking about, is our nation states using commercial, I don't know, is it funds, puppets? Is that a good term? To develop their metadata and data collection schemes. And is it so blatant that, well, let me put it this way. This is kind of so blatant that I'm glad that the United States has a ban on using Huawei for 5G services. Huawei actually started doing it in rural and lower income areas in the US. And then the US government went, no, get out. Okay, now I don't know if those, I think they were in Alabama and Mississippi and Missouri and places like that. I don't know if if their equipment was yanked out or if they were just put under new ownership. I don't know if there are magic parameters. I don't know, obfuscated code. I don't know if they're still sending. But I mean, Alabama has, Huntsville, which is a not insignificant part of the United States defense apparatus. Huntsville, Alabama, in case you don't know, has, good Lord, like everything. They have literal rocket scientists. They're used for everything from missiles to rockets to everything under the sun. And so NASA has a center there in Huntsville. It's literally like a rocket. If you ever remember the series on Sci-Fi Channel, Eureka, like that's Huntsville. It's an amazing. And people from Huntsville are like, no, it's not. Look, it's cool, okay? But are they getting all of their metadata sent to China through Huawei equipment that's no longer being maintained by Huawei? I would doubt it. I would assume that the U.S. government has gone through and checked on that. But then again, assumptions have a habit of being wrong. Could or might, should. So this is a really fascinating piece of evidence that highlights and shows up something that, if you put these items together, and if I'm correct, I could be wrong, shows that there are some potentiality for, well, nation state espionage in a very, very commercial and sort of mundane and transparent. Back to you, sir.
It's like, I honestly think every time I hear about China nation states and stuff like that, and especially China, because they have a massive budget for this, even more than probably Russia, North Korea, Iran, all put together. And if people don't think that nation states aren't already in appropriate networks and just waiting for the time where they need that information or that data, it's like you're just lying to yourself at the end of the day. At the end of the day, the biggest transfer of wealth in history is pretty well documented of China stealing intellectual property around the world. So I believe they're already there. And that's why I think compromise assessments are important. What do you think, Josh?
I couldn't agree more. I think that, as a matter of fact, if you're not egress filtering and egress monitoring all of your traffic going away from your company, you don't know who's listening and who's in there and who's going on. And, look, it's a truism. For any sufficiently large network, you already have people inside your network that you don't want there. So if that's the case, and that goes right along with assume breach, assume you're penetrated, assume you're compromised. So if you're not watching traffic leaving your network, you just don't know.
No, and at the end of the day, these nation states are probably tripping over each other inside the networks as well. It's like, oh, come on. It's like they're in there. And the thing as well, actually, you talk about Rita. I like Rita, and it looks for beaconing and stuff like that. If right. I was a nation state, would I be beaconing hourly, daily, weekly? No. What type of beacons are you going to have to be looking for from a nation state?
From a nation state, I'd be looking for baseline beacons. I'd be looking for beacons, the old low and slow concept, right? I would be looking for beacons that are actually parts of ICMP pings, DNS requests, but once every day, once every week. I was talking like a packet a day.
Yeah.
Or a packet an hour, a packet a minute.
I'm with you.
Something that over time you build into your baseline. You're like, oh, that's normal. No, it may be normal. Normal doesn't mean benign.
If someone's going to stay in your network for days, weeks, months, and definitely years, the beaconing is going to be very low and slow. Well, thank you, Josh. Good to have you on.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you, sir. And finally, the story which is not going away. Don't you just love some cat and mouse games? Which makes me forget whose side I'm on. And sometimes I support both sides because you like an underdog, don't you? But okay, TV warped my mind. Anyway, jokes, obviously. Let's get the bad guys, even though they have a sense of humor. So anyway, Lockbit returns after takedown with new extortion threats. Okay, the summary of this. Lockbit ransomware gang claims to be operational again, despite watch media size. Is that a word? Despite law enforcement efforts to take them down, they threaten renewed attacks. They're coming back with data leaks, including potentially sensitive information, as they say. Watch this space. Some key points on this. Lockbit claims its servers were compromised due to a PHP vulnerability. Silly Lockbit. The group denies law enforcement's claims on affiliate arrests and stolen data recovered. They now, in addition to all the badness before, threaten to target government agencies more frequently. Hopefully, just leave the medical and education alone. Go for someone with more money. It's like, go for harder targets. They're too easy. So, but Lockbit claims to possess sensitive data from Fulton County, including potential ties to Donald Trump's case. Do you reckon they just put Donald Trump's name in there because the media like it? Who knows? They are media WHORs. The group promises data leaks and updated security measures. Sort out your PHP. Okay, some implications. The incident highlights the challenges faced by law enforcement in tackling ransomware gangs. I'm glad they're doing something, though. It raises concerns about potential data breaches and the targeting of government entities. Look at the DNC hacks. And us, the cybersecurity professionals, yes, we need to do something. We need to mitigate. But rather than giving you loads of answers today, I'm going to leave you with some questions. Can Lockbit sustain operations despite law enforcement scrutiny? Will leaked data, if any, have real-world consequences? And finally, how can organizations best protect themselves from ransomware attacks? Probably turn off the computer and go home. Okay, thank you all for tuning in. I know that your time is precious. Please tell your friends if you think we can keep them informed. Thank you, Josh. Good to see you outside PSW. Really good to see you, sir. On Friday, Dr. Doug is back, and you will have me again with him for the professional commentary. Peace out, party people, and have a safe week.